Your Worship, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk, and good morning, everybody, on this beautiful sunny winter day here in Wasaga Beach. We'll call this meeting to order, and I will look to item number 1.1, a land acknowledgement. I'll turn it over to Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the people of the Wyandot Nation also inhabited these lands. We acknowledge that these nations were sovereign nations existing before the arrival of settlers. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water. We also acknowledge that the waterways near us have a long history predating European arrival. Since time immemorial, waterways were the lifeblood of the indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In the spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Megwich. Moving on to item number 2 is disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have none before me at this time. If someone throughout the meeting should feel they have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. Item number 3 is adoption of the agenda. Recommended motion that the contents of the special council meeting agenda for January 30th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? Carries unanimously. And moving on to item number 4 is presentations. We have a presentation this morning from Geosands Inc., and we do have Geosands Chair Mr. Peter Prager and our Geosands President, our CEO, Brandon Weiss, with us. And so I will turn the floor over to you two gentlemen for the presentation. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Your Worship. Hopefully everybody can hear us okay.
Ben?
Good. We thank you for the opportunity to give you an update as to kind of the work that we've been doing in 2024 and what our plans are for 2025. We last got together in June of this past year to have a formal presentation of the AGM to give you our year-end performance and all the numbers and budgets and things along those lines. And this is more of an informal update. We wanted to just give a high-level update as to kind of what our plans were. We didn't do a PowerPoint presentation. We thought it would be more interactive to do it this way from a briefing note. So as we go through this, please feel free to ask questions if you like as we go through, or wait until the end. And without any more further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to kind of go through the report. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Peter, and good morning, Your Worship and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak with you today. As Peter had discussed, we had wanted to have more touch points with Council, and we had to discuss coming forward more on a semi-annual basis, really to provide you with a highlight of some of what we've been doing and give you more of a timely report on the information, the work that we're doing in the utility. I prepared a briefing note for Council to really summarize the key accomplishments for the utility in 2024 and really outline our priorities for 2025. And I really wanted to speak briefly to that today. As outlined in the memo and with respect to 2024 accomplishments, it was a real strong year for the corporation and the board. We really made meaningful progress on how we are defining growth. We're strengthening our stakeholder relationships and really advancing some key initiatives. A major milestone for us in 2024 was the approval of our 2024 cost of service application. This really involved a comprehensive regulatory review and a rate reset for WDI. And for Council's purpose, I really wanted to bring to your attention that during this process, there were concerns raised about our corporate operating structure. And in response to this, the board has recognized that there is merit in exploring a potential structural change. So as we're looking into 2025, we're really setting our key priorities based on looking at the corporate structure, really continuing to evaluate the structural changes, looking at our strategic plan. So we are coming out of a 5-year strategic plan. So we're really revisiting our vision We're going to be assessing our environment, and we're going to be looking at setting priorities really to achieve some of our growth strategies. As well as we continue to make investments in strengthening our system and really preparing for future demand and supporting the town's growth. We know, and we've seen it, there's a lot of growth happening in the town of Wasaga Beach, so we know we play a key role in that, and we have a partnership with the town, and we want to make sure we continue to make sure we support and are there to support the town's growth, as well as continue to support all of our stakeholders, so really ensuring that our investments are driving value back to the corporation and to our customers as well. When we look at performance, and I would just highlight this for council, we actually had, from a performance standpoint, we had a really strong year in 2024, although I would note that our outages, it wasn't a normal year for us in terms of outages, so our customers did experience more outages than they would normally occur over, the last 10 years, for example. A lot of these outages are outside of our control, and there were some unfortunate circumstances, but I would, just for council's purpose, I would note that it was nothing that has been raised as a concern for me, so we're not altering any plans to address it. It was just something that was more of an outlier for us this year. We did note this within the memo, and I just want to really to highlight this, is that we do continue to operate in a very dynamic environment, and it's evolving. So we continue to navigate a lot of the political environment, really look at how we're going to support electrification, emerging technologies. We know AI right now is pushing and putting a lot of pressure on us. We're really looking at how we can integrate that technology into the workforce, as well as we continue to have changing customer expectation and growth too, and town growth as well. I think when I always look, and if everyone ever talks to me about the utility, I always say, the strong thing about us being a small utility is that we are agile. So being agile, we can respond quickly when we see some of these environmental changes occurring, and we can adjust our strategies accordingly to reflect that as well. So that's always going to be a strength for us. I want to highlight for council, and this is something that came to me late in the year, but in October, the federal government announced a funding initiative, and it was through the Smart Renewable and Electrification Pathway Program, where they allocated $4.5 billion across Canada to really look at how they can modernize and strengthen the electrical systems within the country. And this is really driven by decarbonization, obviously supporting electrification. Through this, we really felt there was merit to put in a few projects that we feel that would elevate the community, really put a focus on us in advancing some green initiatives, as well as supporting decarbonization initiatives and building a system that is really meeting the needs of how we would look at modernizing our grid. One key project that we did look at, and it would be looked at upon from a partnership with the town and Wasaga Distribution, is a solar battery storage energy hub. So we put forward a proposal, an expression of interest at this time to explore and consider this to advance to the next stage, which would be an official proposal. At that time, I would note for council's knowledge that we would be looking to solidify a partnership and get the appropriate approvals in place to move forward with that project. There would be about 50% funding available to advance it as well through the funding program. With that, I do want to acknowledge that town staff has been really good to work with on that. They really supported me with the initial submission, as well as some of the more technical aspects within the facility as well. So that's been a great undertaking that we've made a late year push on. I also want to let council know, and lastly, we are, although we haven't finalized our financial returns or financial results yet, I would note that we did have a strong financial year. We are anticipating that we would exceed our financial projections. So that was a little bit of good news from us from a financial perspective. And that's kind of really what I wanted to say to speak to the memo. I would really open it up if council has any questions, any concerns, or really any further input for us to take back to my team would be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brandon. And Peter, questions or comments from members of council? All right, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Brandon, with the funding project that you mentioned that you're looking to apply for, what sort of investment are you thinking that it would require from the town or from your organization?
So we preliminarily put about, and sorry, through your worship, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell, but we've initially put an estimate on it about $7 million in total. So we'd be looking at about $3.5 million for funding from the government. And we would be looking at partnerships to, maybe a 25-25, or we can look at external partnerships potentially available as well. But we haven't worked out the full details on how we would secure and look at that initial funding stage on our behalf. But we do recognize there are benefits from the town's perspective and from our perspective as well. So.
Sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Supplementary through your worship. And would that project be looking at storing energy creation for the town's utilization, or would it be that we'd be selling it at a profit back to the grid? Just out of curiosity.
So there would be multiple, we can look at it potentially look at multiple revenue streams. So the town would have the ability through the solar generation would have the ability to offset the consumption they use at the TPAL. So there would be direct monetary benefits just through being able to self-generate your electricity. With the battery storage in place, it would provide an ability to look at more of an energy arbitrage / demand response potential program that could be used to offset some of the peak demand in the province. And we haven't firmed up and finalized what that would look like from a revenue perspective, but there would be potential opportunities to explore revenue generation through those means as well. Generation and through the storage facility can also be used to offset some of the peak from electric vehicle charging, as well. It provides us with an asset to utilize on our system to alleviate some of the demand as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Councillor Belanger.
Sorry about that, through the mayor. Yes, Brendan, on the battery solar system for the TPAL, if we were successful in that, our portion of that, I think, is upwards to about $3.5 million. Have we anticipated what the return on investment would be? Like how many years before we would pay off that amount and start generating additional profit?
We haven't done a full analysis on it yet, Councillor Belanger, and through you, your worship, Mayor Smith. We wanted to, we really put a push through to do the expression of interest at this time. And we would, when we do look at it, we are successful to move forward with the proposal, a full financial analysis will be conducted to ensure we are satisfied with the returns that we would anticipate we should be receiving from the investments that we would be making as well. I would assume right now you're probably in the 7 to 8 year payback period. Storage and battery storage is still quite expensive, although it has come down quite a bit in price over the last 10 years. So the business cases and the economics are starting to make a little bit more sense. It is really about how we can layer on and stack the benefits. So we know with the facility, you have the ability to offset on the electricity, the price of electricity within the province. It's really about having access and using that storage, that battery storage, to really generate further benefits back and revenue streams. So those are things we're going to have to really dig into, get support, and look at how we can utilize and ensure that we get a fair return for the investments that we're making.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from members of council? All right. Thank you very much, Peter and Brendan. I did receive a couple of questions from some residents. One of them, of course, was how much do you anticipate the required investments from the town over the next 2 to 10 years, if any?
Thank you, Worship. And if I guess from my perspective, my understanding would be is the investment from the ratepayers to support the ongoing investments needed to support the distribution system. And we recently submitted a distribution system plan to the Ontario Energy Board. And in that plan, we anticipate roughly $3 to $4 million annual net investment per year going back into the system. 5 to 10 years, we're probably looking at elevating that a little bit, probably in the $4 to $5 million range. So you're probably about $30 to $35 million over the next 10 years.
All right, thank you, Brandon. And then with respect to these anticipated dollars needed, the next question was, does distribution have reserves for this, or will this come strictly through rate increases?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so we'll have to balance when we look at financing. We look at how we're managing the investments needed. We'll have to look at a combination of debt and equity to finance our investments. We, being an incorporated business, we do earn a return on our. We do earn a return as a utility, and our equity that we generate through the utility, we would look at that, utilize that to reinvest back into the system, and then offset that through debt financing. We do, and through the board and through my efforts, we have been looking at, really long term and how we look at sustainability for the utility. We know there's a lot of pressures from investments needed into the system over the next while, specifically because we have electrification. And although we don't truly know what that looks like at this moment, we are preparing, we are modernizing our system. So we feel from the corporation standpoint, there should be, with the right planning in place and building out and making sure we are looking at our investment strategies, we'll be looking at how to advance the utility in that direction. So it will be a combination, and there will be, through investments, but ultimately there are pressures on rates to support those investments.
All right, and then the final question I had was with respect to debts and preparing for the future. Can you just give a brief overview for the people out there who are interested in this, our residents, as to how that works with respect to us taking on debt and then how we recoup that debt and those expenses through the rate increases?
Thank you, Your Worship. You're not making it easy on me today. The regulator, so we are regulated through the Ontario Energy Board, with Sega Distribution is regulated through the Ontario Energy Board. And the purpose of the Ontario Energy Board is really they're an economic regulator, and they do look at operationals, but historically and traditionally they've been more of an economic regulator. And through that, they put proxies in place to basically say, this is how you should be running as a business. So when we go forward for rate applications, we are assumed to be operating a debt structure of 60% to 40%. So when we look at investments, when we look at our balance sheet, when we plan out, we want to make sure we're making investments, keeping a current that capital structure in mind. So we generally look to make investments as we move forward, especially because we have a lot of pressures on making investments. We're probably looking at that 60-40 range. The entity itself with Sega Distribution has run on low debt for a long time. So its balance sheet is strong. It has a strong balance sheet. It has the ability to absorb debt to meet its needs and meet the needs of the future needs of the entity as well. So it's well positioned and to move forward to make sure we have the investments to support the needs of those investments needed to meet the growth and the demand that we anticipate. So.
All right, thanks very much, Brandon. Just look to staff if there are any questions. Seeing none, no further questions from council. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate your time. We do have a recommended motion that the presentation by Geosands Chair Peter Prager and CEO Brandon Weiss to council pertaining to Geosands 2024 achievements and 2025 priorities be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Ego and seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You as well. Now moving on to item number 5, staff reports, and this is the expiring terms appointments to hydro boards 2025 and a recommended motion there. So I'll just give a brief explanation. There were several board members whose terms expired this year, and so we put out a call for board members. We did receive some applications, and for the most part, board members who were only assigned a couple of years ago were renewed, and we do have 2 other people. One from was on a board previously is coming back, and then a new board member with considerable experience in the hydro sector. So we do have a recommended motion that the report titled Expiring Terms Appointments to Hydro Board 2025 the special council meeting of January 30th, 2025 be received, and that the resolution of the shareholders of Geosands Inc. attached as Appendix A be adopted, and that the clerk be directed to provide notice of the board appointments to Geosands in accordance with shareholder direction bylaw 2024-70 and the Business Corporations Act. Questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 6 is bylaws. The recommended motion that the 2025-05 be received and be deemed and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor White, Councillor Eagle, all in favor? That motion carries unanimously. And then we have a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at a special council meeting held Thursday, January 30, 2025. Mover and a seconder for this, please.
Your Worship, you covered that. You're good to go.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. All right. Well, it looks like we got through this quicker than we expected, so we're going to adjourn for 39 minutes, 12 seconds, and then we will be back. So get yourself a coffee and get ready to settle in. We've got a bit of work ahead of us. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.